an existing structure
Yeah, again,
in our code?
there was a table presented and a discussion last month. I don't have the particular numbers, but if what is required for this proposal is different in terms of off-street parking, which is one of the items listed, off-street parking, loading, and access, and if it's significantly different than the needs presented by the prior set of uses, then site plan approval would be required.
Does it count? What is it count?
Well, if you remember, we did an analysis on several threshold items, both tables we looked at, and we compared, and they're all compared to the March 1998 to the current.
This was reviewed by Mike. What was the count?
Well, I'll run through all of them for you. The parking requirements, based on square footages of the uses back in that time, of what's proposed this time, 39 spaces were the demand then, and 39 spaces is the demand now, so we didn't cross that threshold. Sewer, because you had the laundromat, based on machine count, you had the 12,000 gallons versus 2,500 gallons of this proposal. Same thing with domestic water. And then quick generation, based on the mixed retail square footage, that was actually slightly higher than what we proposed today.
Okay, thank you. All right, Michael, we're at a point where, it's up to the board now, whether they want to approve.
Based upon your decision last month, if the conditions or issues that Steve just went through in his list are satisfied, then the applicant is authorized to move forward with getting building permits and ADD permits from road and asphalt.
Since you're the senior guy, Dominic?
My basic concern is beautiful, but I'm just concerned about the table of cars, and people have voiced their opinions in the account about cars and parking, of that issues. Also, Chase Bank has an open lot next door to Quattrino's, concerned about pedestrians parking their cars in Ray's lot next door. You have to get a policeman of some sort to move around cars out of his lot. That's big. I think the building is absolutely beautiful.
Stephen?
Well, I mean, one of the things, in one of the documents that we presented to this board last month was what we call the downtown parking plan. And it's really, we've analyzed the central business district. There's approximately 500 public parking spaces within the central business district. I use the term central business district because that's what this is a part of. And part of that is pedestrian orientation, pedestrian activity. Kelly is going to actively promote and educate her clientele with where the public parking is. We have this wonderful thing called the internet now. She's going to have a web page. There'll be literature in the, just like the gym. You got to go to the gym, big sign, don't park in town hall. Every type of place you go, there's certainly, you have to have respect for your neighbors. So she's going to have an active, as part of her management plan, is going to be promoting and educating her clientele on where public parking is. But the real bottom line is, this is the central business district. This is where people should be walking, and you have to park. And, obviously, Ray has the issue.
You're talking to Warren.
Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we do have to have the right to have a speech. Because we are the public. It is our community. You can't say we can't.
Can I have
These
your
are
name, sir?
lives and
Can I have
our
your-
homes you're talking about.
What is your name?
John McConnell.
Mr. McConnell. Thank you. This is not a public hearing.
Can we
We're
have
going
one?
to
No.
make a vote.
No.
We have to have a public
Sir.
hearing. You can't have a public
So
hearing.
you're going to vote on our
I'm following
lives
the
and our
procedures of
property.
this planning board. And please,
But we
Don't
have to have a say in our community.
Excuse me.
You're telling me I have no say in this, and I live a block from town.
Sir, please don't speak out.
Why?
Because I said so, that's why.
But I'm entitled to speak.
No, you're not.
This-
Let me, if I can explain.
Excuse me.
Why are we
This
not
is not a
entitled?
public hearing.
Can we have
When
one?
will there be a
Hold
public
on,
hearing?
Michael.
There are only certain types of applications under state law and under our village code that requires public hearings. Site plans never require public hearings. If a site plan application was required, a public hearing could be held on an optional basis. The planning board has concluded that no site plan application is required, therefore no public hearing is required.
That is our village code. Is that correct, Michael?
It's both state law and the village code.
Correct.
The requirement is that the meeting be open to the public and that the
Correct.
public can hear and see what transpired. There's no requirement of a public hearing.
Thank you. Parking.
Part of the.
Parking also in private areas such
Sharon, I'm
as...
sorry, but you
Right.
Sir, I just heard it was optional. It was optional that we can have a public
No.
hearing.
If-
I'm
if-
against
excuse me.
everything our options.
If site plan approval was required, a
Why
public
isn't
hearing
it
is
required?
Well, that's what they're discussing now, because the thresholds for site plan approval have not been satisfied.
Okay, we want the option.
We want an option.
Go ahead. Well, point is, the traffic or the parking, there was mention of the property next door, Ray Quattrini's. You're gonna put a policy in?
Like I said, the part of Kelly's management responsibility is going to be educating her clientele on where to park. I mean, that's it, that's all I can tell you. It's a central business district, I can name 21 restaurants that don't have parking in the central business district.
There you go.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Let's go back to what Mike just said. Optional, we were discussing.
Only, a public hearing on an optional basis is only required if you conclude that
Right.
site plan approval is required.
Right, but you just went, after that, you said something else, which said that it doesn't meet.
You concluded last month, and I think you're revisiting now, whether or not the application as presented exceeds any of the thresholds that trigger the need for site plan approval. You had concluded last month that it did not, and I think you're double checking to make sure that your conclusion is something you're going to stand by.
Are there any other comments? Board members, what do you want to do with this? We're at a point with our last meeting, we asked the applicant for certain conditions, which they had a TAC meeting, they were satisfied, is that correct? Satisfied with the engineer?
It appears that they have that. Well, the two things, the TAC meeting, which you asked us to do, we did, and we complied to the request, and then we also met with the chief of police and the chief of fire chief.
Correct.
For emergency services.
How many people are occupied in the space, allowed by law into the space?
Well, occupancy is different than zoning. Occupancy falls under the building inspector. Zoning, our zoning permits 76 seats. If they want to continue to use the balance of the existing retail.
If they want to use the two stores next door.
If you want to rent those based on parking requirements, it limits the restaurant to 76 seats.
You're saying,
What do you have in there now?
76 seats.
67.
67.
So they have 5 seats, they have 5 parking spots additional for these next door retail stores. If these 2 retail stores next door, probably, they know what's in, it's only having 5 parking spaces.
Well, retail or service is 1 space per 300 square feet. Plus a floor.
So I'm sorry, can you repeat what you just said? So it's 1,200 square foot retail space, so it's 2,400 square feet. So you're going to take additional parking on those 2 retail stores, say, every 300 square feet is 1 space, right? So I'm saying it's going to take 12, 4, yeah, another 10 spots.
The 2,400, how we handle, our analysis, when we analyze it to the March 1998, it's 2,400 square feet of space. All right, that requires 8 spaces. And we also figured that in that space, there's going to be 4 employees. So we have to have 1 per employee. So, and then then we figured that the restaurant is going to have 4 employees. So we take those 4 employees. And the balance, 1 space for the restaurant, or for the apartment. And then the restaurant, if you look at that we really backed into, is at 67 seats, and that's 22 parking spaces. So the demand for this proposal is to